Hello, I am an office worker in my 30s who got divorced just a year ago. Others celebrate their wedding anniversary. Now, the reason I became a man legally with my ex-husband is because I want to commemorate myself. So I courageously share my story. After the divorce, my family and friends told me that I had a wise divorce. There are many people who live for 10 or 20 years, enduring October like a husband or a beggar, but I quickly divorced before giving birth. Before we got married, I thought my husband and in-laws would be fine, because my mother never made unreasonable demands on me while preparing for the wedding, and there was no major interference afterwards. So the only problem I had was that it was with my in-laws. I heard from my husband that my parents-in-law's restaurant went bankrupt, so I sold the house and rented a place. When I got married, except for the fact that I received little help from my in-laws. Yes, I thought it wouldn't be a big problem if my husband was at work or not being able to get financial help, because I also went to work with the mindset of what to do. If the one who can afford a little bit more adds a little more. But that doesn't mean my parents live much better than this book. My brother lost his job as a civil servant, and my mother is the director of a daycare center. Two people are here. My dad succeeded in subscribing to me and my younger brother since I was young. So I had a house in my early 20s. When I was in college, he paid off my parents' loans. But while I was at work, I had quite a bit of wealth that everyone inherited from my dad and grandfather, so I grew up affluent since I was little, doing everything I want to do after growing up like that and getting married. It was hard to accept that the meaning in marriage information had changed so much. I would like to ask you in advance if your in-laws are poor or difficult. I would like to think twice or thrice about getting married. This is what I have experienced and said, that when parents do not have money, that poverty affects their children in some way. At the beginning of the marriage, I found out from the in-laws' installment savings that the things you showed me weren't the real you. My mother-in-law said that when I first went to say hello to her, she talked to me very properly and said that she was sorry that she was not very helpful in preparing for the wedding. I must have heard from my boyfriend, but when I got married, he asked me insinuatingly, "What are we going to do with our newlyweds?" Hyansu said, "I heard that you are already at home under your name, but I can't afford it right now so that we can take care of yours. Maybe it's good that the situation has turned out like this, because he got married first. I'm sorry, but I'm not saying that you're starting out in a house that's in 4 names. The apartment I have still has tenants, but it happens to be a wedding that is similar to, so it overlaps late. Originally, the house was continuously rented out, and we have no plans to get a small apartment or office at all near work. The restaurant can't afford to support the lump sum, but it's okay." Then I had to get a loan and start, but I hated that again. So I was already thinking about it, so I told my mother. If my mother says the charter contract ends next spring, I think we can move in and live. I did it, so you don't have to worry too much about my problem. Oh, so it's fortunate I haven't been able to sleep for a few days because of that. It went up a lot more than the first time, because it was near the station in front of the place where you bought it. But really, how did you prepare it so smartly? It's because I've been preparing for it since I was young. My mother seemed to have already done price research on the apartment I own. Did you worry a lot about your sister-in-law's house back then? I only knew about it after I got married. But my mother was the one who owned the house, and my parents had a lot of scheming. Anyway, I didn't know then my mother-in-law is not to the extent of noticing, but there is no problem with talking to and from the elders of both families at most times. No matter how much your in-laws do, why do you not want to spend a single penny while sending your son to marry? I'm the eldest son in that house, and I'm alone for the first time, so I really want to do it. Mom doesn't want a lot anyway. We have to adjust as much as the in-laws do. Still, we do the house, but I hope you can do something you like, even if it's just water. Mom said I was okay, but I didn't understand. My mom sent me the weather, but she couldn't do this and that, so I was anxious. But my mother-in-law sent off her son's wedding and only said that she had no money. And it seemed that she was upset that you guys should take care of everything. Besides, when I see my friends around my mom getting married, I decided to say that I am not comfortable with it, because I think I am getting married in June. You didn't tell me not to get married though. Since they are the people who respect that doctor the most, I was in the position that parents should take responsibility for their child's life, unless there was a disapproval on never. Other than that, I checked without any major obstacles. After getting married like that, I thought that my husband and I just needed to live well together. But after getting married, a completely different person was waiting for me. Of course, I don't marry to live the same life as when I was single. So I think it's natural to adapt and accept the other person's family and lifestyle. After getting married, it is not a problem that it becomes more and more difficult to handle the mother's attitude, which has changed 180 degrees from before. It was the first time Shinwoo came to see us together. I prepare myself. I wanted to serve food to my mother and sister-in-law. My mother and sister-in-law came to my house, and I looked around the house and started nagging me unexpectedly. No matter how much I look at you guys, do it on your own. No. If it's before furniture, you should think about buying something good and using it once you buy it. I was in tears for a moment, but I held it in and told the situation. My mother's coma is Hyunsu's brother. I didn't have much money to return the deposit when I let the tenant out here, so I couldn't buy something that was too expensive because I was on a budget. But my mother, who heard me, would have a displeased look on her face for a moment. That's why my son bought it, so Chancel says Marar. I didn't mean to say this because we didn't give you anything to do. Until then, he had never said something unpleasant to me. So my mother's nagging hurt me quite a bit. Yeah, since you didn't add anything, I probably couldn't say more. It's Idris's house. What can I say more? But I knew a little that my mother was having an absurd conversation while I was preparing a meal. Mom, this house sells 300 million units in the station area. But now 900 million is too easy to clean. So you can get it more expensive, but more lots than when you first bought it. Oh my God, when you were even a year younger, you should have bought a lot like this. That's right. Oh Mom, these days, if you don't have money, you can't even buy a house. Anyway, Suwon did it smartly and your brother was blessed. Well, I don't know when. Saying that, you can pack up quickly. Don't worry. Mom has her own thoughts. I was slightly offended that they were talking about why they went up, but I pretended not to hear. I could barely hear the conversation. I was slightly offended, but I remember telling others and just passing it over. However, my mother, who was not very close to my house, was 30 minutes away and often went to the newlyweds' house. I could not stand the interference with household chores or nagging me. What was especially difficult for me was that my mother-in-law secretly leaned on me financially. Since I am the eldest daughter-in-law, I only have one son. And I have to take care of all the big things in the family. So I guessed that there would be a lot of people who cheered me. But what my mother-in-law said to me at the gathering of the whole family on the first holiday was even a bit shocking. Now that you're part of our family, I hope you and your family can help each other and get along well when you have work to do. I don't know if Hansuk said it before marriage, but I have it because I received living expenses. Think about it, and send me 500,000 won per month. I was embarrassed to ask for an allowance every month. But I said I would understand. My husband must have taken it for granted that I even gave him 1 million won each, so I can live with this. I am working. My mother said that it didn't matter because my father was still making money, and that it wasn't such a conscienceless test, but it wasn't enough. No matter how much we work, it's not like we're looking at 10 million won. There are people at my parents' house who say that I don't like you because I'm giving them pocket money. However, thinking that I had to give 500,000 won every month, I was very angry. When I returned home and told my husband, what he said was even worse. We weren't even making money when we were together. So how could you give 50 a month? Your mother doesn't know that you still have the card you wrote when you got married. Before marriage, I lived well even if I gave you 1 million won each. The two of us still earn more than 500. But how can we not give our parents less than 500,000 won? So that our mother does not have a loan like ours? You know. Then my parents will give you the same. Even if it costs 1 million won, it's not burdensome. Hey, if it's such a waste, I'll give it to my parents from my salary. So you can take care of your parents. What are you going to do? Brother, I saw you again. They said you left everything to me before marriage. That's it, our parents. If I don't give you money, you can't even buy side dishes properly. My sister said she wouldn't have money to give to her parents because she was saving money to buy a house. I decided to give 500,000 won, but my mother burdened me with all sorts of hospital expenses in addition to the allowance given for living expenses for a few months. And my mother made sure that your family accounted for a week's worth of food. The first few times I passed too, but since it kept repeating, I got annoyed. It's unfortunate, but it's ridiculous to go to the mart and spend over 200,000 won without buying anything. We are both working, so we hardly have anything to eat at home. But most of the time, the money was spent on food for the family. What really annoys me is that if you get married and earn a lot more, you will think that you will save a lot. It's wise to sell it now. You say you don't have a loan, so if you sell it, everything comes out as money. The house in my name was absurd, and I asked a normal mother. That was what my parents did, and I have no intention of selling it for the next 10 years. My mother's face is different from before. I'm not saying this for nothing. You have to see how long it will come. It's because I'm having a hard time. You sell your apartment, so you guys buy a small one. Add some money to your good faith. Yes. I am selling my apartment and buying a lady. Please tell me when you see it. Mother's music is mine. Why do I have to sell that house and move to another house? Because of that. I have nothing more to say about what you said. I'm really talking about selling my house to buy a house. My sister-in-law, who lives nearby, says that she has to move. But the rent is not enough, and it would be better to buy a house at this time. He even made an absurd demand to repay part of the loan. Who's just going to take your money at random? Once you add it, you are selling an apartment that has tripled. It's not a losing business, but what are you doing to help your family? You said you didn't feel sorry for your sister-in-law living on rent like that. By what right did my mother go to sell me the house? Hot. Why don't you have the right? My son lives in the same house, but later he sells the house and rents it. If we move, won't our son pay back the loan as well? Then I have a collie on the way home from work today. Don't be ashamed to ask me for something like that when you haven't been holding back allowance money every month for 1 year after marriage. I paid for my mother's groceries and hospital bills. I think selling to Jeju is really excessive. Please stop. This is what happens when you suddenly wake up anyway. I made it clear selling your house is the way to make the whole family happy. So don't be so stubborn. Is there any reason to live with my son, whom you hate? Divorce. My mother probably brought out the word divorce as the last card to do what she wanted. But as soon as I heard the word divorce from my mother, I wanted to come back. Tell me that the divorce is going down there. I'll use what my mother said. I can't take it anymore either. What did you say just now? Divorce. My mother said that she would resign for being a daughter-in-law in 29. It's hard for a mother who can't be a husband to feed her son. I'm sick of the money I make and the pictures I took after I went home. My son feeds your son earns better money than me. But the mother who feeds you showed a reaction I hadn't shown before, so it was obvious that she was embarrassed. It was strange that there was a loud noise just then. I thought it was just a minor mistake, like I couldn't fulfill my work performance. Did you know that you can't even get severance pay? My husband returned tens of millions of won to the company and left without a penny. Fortunately, I got fired again in the middle of it. But the fact that I had a husband made me feel like the sky was falling. Besides, for a husband who did such a thing, it was too humane for him to do housework for a while after he lost his job. We couldn't even talk properly because we noticed each other. I hate to see my husband like that, but I couldn't just sit still. Whatever I did, I was fortunate to have money, but I was at a loss as to how to live on. But my husband did this because he had already been told to do it. Don't worry too much. I'll prepare for the second season soon. And let's do one favor, keep it a secret from my parents until I get a job during the day. My parents would be worried if they knew, but it wouldn't do any good to tell them. Don't tell me until my parents do. You mean don't say it because you're embarrassed? Don't you mean don't say it because you're worried about your parents? Why do you have to do such a big thing to your family? You look like you want to cover up your wrongdoing. I have to live on the money I earn from next month. So think about leaving now. I can't afford it with my salary. And of course, my parents should take a break. Why do I have to lie? You still don't understand how big this is. Where in the world is there a wife who wants to divorce her husband because he was fired from his job? Anyway, I'll tell my parents. Pretend you don't know until then. I'll tell you about my parents. Your parents take care of it. And your mother's pocket money is for because she didn't make it today. I know that. In a few months, you'll cut it down a bit. I'll do it somehow quickly. So let's just ask for one thing. Of course, it is said that couples should be supportive of each other when they are having a hard time. Since we are human beings, if we are hurt by something, we can't help. It's only right that we somehow work together to get through it. However, it was unacceptable to me that my husband was fired from the company for doing such a thing, even though he knew it was his fault. Semin didn't even know that our situation was like that. And every time he got his pocket money, he sent a text message asking if he had put in the money. I was going to tell my mother-in-law about our situation right away. But my husband asked me to bear with it for just a few months. So I had no choice but to send her pocket money to eat mustard while crying. Why did I throw it away? Because of this situation. Nature had no choice but to rely on its own parents. It seemed that the two of us were shocked by what our parents were doing with their daughters. Wisdom, what can I do? You're still young. You're not going to attack me until I get a job elsewhere. Even if it's hard, you'll understand and endure it. Mom, it would be a big deal if I played. But there is a salary that comes out fortunately. This bad guy in the West takes someone else's precious daughter to study and makes this kind of heart touch. Your mom is going to die of upset. If you need help from your mom, tell me, okay? Even though I couldn't talk about money to my parents. How can they handle my situation so well? They even sent 10 million. One to my bank account for the time being. Write what you need in a hurry. If you need more, tell me. You can't ask your mom for money. Even mom doesn't know that all difficult things will be solved with time. But if there's something that makes you so hard that you can't accept it, you don't have to put up with it, you know. Tears came to my eyes when I heard what my mother said. Fortunately, Mom and Dad said that their daughter was having a hard time and generously supported everything with side dishes and food. I can't tell you how I feel, but I couldn't help but feel apologetic. In addition, even in the midst of that, he did not know that his son had become unemployed. And as long as he was unaware, he was not saying anything because of the 15th. For more than 3 months after losing her husband's part-time job, he had been confined to the Gunyung Pita room, spending time just playing games. If you hate your husband, you don't want to see all of your in-laws. But that's true. I hated being asked to come to eat. And I hated coming to my house to bring side dishes. Then once, when I had no choice but to go home, my mother-in-law told me that she was in an international place. Yes, I have something to tell you. So I asked you guys to come today. Let's talk for a second. I asked if my mother noticed something bad between us. I made up my mind that I had to tell my husband today. But what my mother did to me was something I never expected. Hearing that, I got pissed off and completely turned the beginning of the day upside down. These days, house prices keep rising, and I don't think I'll be able to buy a house if I stay like this, so I'm saying this after thinking a lot. I wanted to ask you to follow me instead of swearing at me. Or why do you talk about my sister-in-law's monthly rent? I'm sitting there with a puzzled look on my face. And my mother is talking about your apartment. I want you to sell it. You posted a lot of that apartment. The price of an apartment isn't something that lasts for 1 million years. Mom thinks it's like a top at this price. It's wise to sell it now. You say you don't have a loan, so if you sell it, everything comes out as money. The house in my name was absurd, and I asked a normal mother. That was what my parents did, and I have no intention of selling it for the next 10 years. My mother's face is different from before. I'm not saying this for nothing. You have to see how long it will come. It's because I'm having a hard time. You sell your apartment, so you guys buy a small one. Add some money to your good faith. Yes, I am selling my apartment and buying a lady. Please tell me when you see it. Mother's music is mine. Why do I have to sell that house and move to another house? Because of that. I have nothing more to say about what you said. I'm really talking about selling my house to buy a house. My sister-in-law, who lives nearby, says that she has to move. But the rent is not enough, and it would be better to buy a house at this time. He even made an absurd demand to repay part of the loan. Who's just going to take your money at random? Once you add it, you are selling an apartment that has tripled. It's not a losing business. But what are you doing to help your family? You said you didn't feel sorry for your sister-in-law living on rent like that. By what right did my mother go to sell me the house? Hot. Why don't you have the right? My son lives in the same house, but later he sells the house and rents it. If we move, won't our son pay back the loan as well? Then I have a collie on the way home from work today. 2. Don't be ashamed to ask me for something like that when you haven't been holding back allowance money every month for 1 year after marriage. I paid for my mother's groceries and hospital bills. I think selling to Jeju is really excessive. Please stop. This is what happens when you suddenly wake up anyway. I made it clear selling your house is the way to make the whole family happy. So don't be so stubborn. Is there any reason to live with my son, whom you hate? Divorce. My mother probably brought out the word divorce as the last card to do what she wanted. But as soon as I heard the word divorce from my mother, I wanted to come back. Tell me that the divorce is going down there. I'll use what my mother said. I can't take it anymore either. What did you say just now? Divorce. My mother said that she would resign for being a daughter-in-law in 29. It's hard for a mother who can't be a husband to feed her son. I'm sick of the money I make and the pictures I took after I went home. My son feeds your son earns better money than me. But the mother who feeds you showed a reaction I hadn't shown before, so it was obvious that she was embarrassed. It was strange that there was a loud noise. Just then, my husband came into my mother's room. You came in just fine. You said you would tell your parents directly. Tell me now or else I'll just blow it all up. Then my husband hesitated and tried to figure out the situation. What kind of vulgarity are you in the city right now? Lee Hyunsu, I sold your house to him. And the house where your brother lives, that hotel, that's a big mistake. Mom didn't just ask for it, but she just jumped up and said no. Take your wife and talk to her. Why are you talking to this person like that? Are you thinking the same as your wife? You're not going to tell your mother. Okay, then I'll do it. To divorce that person, I'm not a big enough person to joke around with. People who play and eat at home. I'm feeding them right now. And my mother didn't know that. So how did she take care of me so cheaply? I knew how upset I was every time. I tried to hold out until I became a human, but I can't. I really can't stand you trying to sell me a house. My mother asked for a divorce. So I will. Mother, tell me what this means. That's true, Mom. I was going to tell you after I closed my eyes. I'm sorry. My son misunderstood, so I made sure to let him know. At least, the boss exchanged money for a good person and urinated on it. Do you know what a mother's son is? When the thief arrived, at noon, my mother asked me to wait until she sang a song for her collapsing husband. If it were you, I would sell my apartment and build a thatch house. And if you ask me to buy a house, yes, I will buy it. If my mother won't sell the house, I'll divorce you again under a divorce from you. Ah yes, since you came here, you are here from today. Don't even think about coming into my house. I'm going to change my password, so I fiercely shot at her. That's what I said right away. If you don't sell it, it's enough. What are you doing? Talk to your son to get rid of the divorce case and get a divorce by agreement. I finally shot at the family members and left. That day is the last day. My husband said I didn't say it in vain. He really didn't come home that day. Since I notified the youths and came out, they must be doing their own work. I talked to my mother about the work. Even after hearing the truth, my husband was the one who told me to get over it rather than divorce him. 15 sold the house and asked for help to buy a house for her sister-in-law. My mother went mad and told me to break up immediately. The crazy old man is senile, so he can't do it right now. But he tells his daughter-in-law to sell the house. Your divorce. You won't lose anything if you divorce now. You have a child, so you came into your parents' house, so I got it. I gave a class saying I would divorce your son, and came out I'm going to divorce. Mom, I've been really upset too. But I want to do this quickly. I don't know what I've been doing to endure it. The old man ordered the 8 members of the family to divorce. But I hadn't even heard of his mother-in-law who worked so hard. You'll take care of it, but Mom wants a divorce soon. Don't worry, your mom will give you a call for the costs. My mother told me not to have a daughter-in-law role in that house, even if I filed for divorce. I also thought about filing a lawsuit. And I've been researching various things about the divorce process for the past few days. But it's because a person who doesn't even look knows Etamuth called. I told my mother, well, you're not really going to divorce me. That's why I don't think you're going to divorce. You know, they're my parents. You said divorce me right away, or your house would be ruined. Divorce by agreement to end the lawsuit after giving me alimony when the two of us part ways, you choose. If you win it like that, whatever you want. Then when I get married, can you give me extra money? Sell it all and add to your household. That's the only thing you're bad at. I also lost a lot of money I spent on marriage. After a deep sigh, I hung up on the exercise. But I changed my mind with an uncontested divorce. It costs money to file a lawsuit anyway. And since the marriage period is shorter, I don't think there will be much alimony. Fortunately, it was fortunate that the person said he couldn't do it and held on. Until the divorce, I didn't receive all of my mother-in-law's goddess name. I met my husband separately and got the divorce papers stamped. There is no child who gets one when the documents are handed down at the court. So it was a mat for the deliberation period. Since we had no property to share, the couple got divorced very quickly. The newlyweds took out all my husband's belongings and sent them to my in-laws' house. And I vacated the house and returned to my parents' house. And until now, I have been commuting to and from Bunding, my parents' home. There are many things I felt about my short married life before I got married. I was a person who used to tell my parents that I was going to get married without saying anything. But when I got married, the reality was different. I only want to see love, but from the moment I got married and learned inside that my husband's family situation was not good, the couple started to grow apart. It was only then that I realized that it was really burdensome for a daughter-in-law for family members to be financially dependent on their son and daughter-in-law. It's unfortunate, but I understand why people insist on that condition. After actually living in such a situation, I don't know anything else. But it's just as important as economic power. I learned from my in-laws that if you don't have something, it will disappear. If you are still unmarried, or if you do not currently have a lover, be sure to consider the economic power and family environment of your future spouse. I hope you choose this very carefully. I hope that others will not regret it later. And choose divorce like I did. And thank you for opening the ceremony.